My name's Flash.
I know.
Flash Gordon is my favorite film. I consider it to be the most magical film, most inspiring, most exciting, certainly the most colorful film of my youth. But as somebody who loves sci-fi movies and superheroes, this was the most satisfying experience of both my youth and of my adulthood whenever I watch any picture.
Hello. We're from Earth. Friends.
One of the things that's so inspiring about the film is the combination of the rock music from Queen and the over-the-top visuals and the sort of perfect dramatic male hero.
Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets.
And he's genuinely getting in there, fighting with the enemy in such a way that you feel a certain exaltation. If you can just lose your sort of overthinking of how serious these things need to be. The film itself is pure fun. The idea that he engages in a football game with Ming's forces upon first encountering them, to me was the absolute favorite moment.
Go, Flash, go! Go, Flash, go!
I lived to see that moment as a kid. I lived for the opening titles when Ming talks about destroying the world.
I like to play with things a while before annihilation.
And suddenly, Roger Taylor's drums begin. You get that sense of just the rush of your body, and then, of course, the flash in harmony from the band. Certainly the special effects were a little bit more, not necessarily humorous, but they were so colorful and unreal in some other way that the film becomes one of the greatest fantasies, in a way much like a rock opera that had ever been created, and so unlike any of the other films it could be compared to. Flash Gordon is not Star Wars or Superman or any of the other films of its nature. It's in its own category. Larger-than-life characters is what really drew me to wanting to draw. And I've been fortunate enough to work with the biggest characters in comics, everybody from Spider-Man to Superman to Batman. I knew from the age of 4 or 5, this is all I wanted to do for my livelihood. Of course, the main part of the medium of comics, especially in America, is superheroes. It's hard to say that Flash Gordon is himself a superhero when he's really the father of all superheroes in so many ways. He's an equal of Tarzan, John Carter of Mars. That's the type of stuff that Flash Gordon embodies. And of course, his precursor is Buck Rogers, which was also a similarly popular comic strip in the early part of the 20th century. And Flash Gordon would be arguably the most popular of all those things when he hit in his initial period of the 1930s there, and had an effect that would ripple for decades to come.
You're a hero. Don't you see that?
The ironic thing about Flash Gordon is that Flash Gordon was the biggest immediate influence on all these superhero icons, but now more people are going to, of course, know about Superman, the Batman, Green Lantern, whatever, than they'll ever remember about Flash Gordon, because it didn't become the biggest thing like those things did. Even with the comic strip, all these other versions of it, it didn't have the same effect on culture over the long haul. It just affected all these things to be taking inspiration from it, and then they run off and create their own characters that are clearly just, you know, oh, I saw this great costume in Flash Gordon, and you take that and you make it a character. And Flash Gordon, in a way, becomes the Hercules upon which all these other modern myths are based. All the elements in Flash Gordon have somewhat of a mythical base. Flash Gordon being the ultimate Achilles-type hero, you know, a man against the elements, proving that man is better than everything else, and somehow when you go up against Martians and all other creatures, that you somehow can best everybody at whatever sport. This is somewhat the American ideal of the time, which maybe characters like Superman embody more, except it's taken to the extreme of him having phenomenal superpowers, where now Flash was more beating everybody else at the level of a man.
Our trap play worked. They'll follow me for sure.
You know, just an extremely athletic, strong man.
One move and you're looking for a new prince.
Prince Baron and his cohorts are obviously the mythical roots of Robin Hood and the Merry Men. The Hawkmen are not just simply like angels, they're like a lot of creatures of Greek and Roman myth. A combination of birds and men is a pretty consistent feature in many mythologies from countless cultures. So there's these basic elements of mixing animal and man together that populate the world of Mongo.
Hold, lizard man. Escape is impossible.
That you see all throughout both the movie as well as the comics, and that's just simple, basic mythology on every level from every culture. The film itself really should be qualified as a rock opera in so many ways. The fusion of story plus rock and roll music. I was introduced to Queen by my older sister, and of course when the song We Will Rock You from the album News of the World came out, it was the biggest song and the biggest band in the world at that time. And I was sucked into them like any other kid around the age of 8. And by the time that this film came out, for maybe just the reasons of I knew the character from the old Buster Crabbe serials, I knew the character from a cartoon show that was on television at the time, and then adding in Queen, I had to go see this thing. And as it turned out, I had to go see it many, many times in a theater. And Queen did do other work with other films. They did the soundtrack for the film Highlander, and contributed a couple other songs to other films, but Flash Gordon is the most amazing hybrid of their talents. One of the greatest moments in the film that one could experience is the consistent driving drum beat and Brian May's guitar chord as the rocket ship that Flash is piloting is going in towards Mongo City, ready to disrupt Ming's wedding to Dale.
Gordon!
Flash!
I've wished for another modern
Go, Flash!
sci-fi or superhero spectacle film to really have that moment of a rock and roll song that you thrill to as the hero, saves the day.